It's a journey fraught with danger, but one that thousands of refugees are willing to make, crossing the Mediterranean from North Africa illegally, heading for an uncertain future in the European Union. Now, most refugees are migrants, and migrants end up in Spain or Greece. Now, these numbers from the UN show arrivals so far this year. But Italy hits the headlines most often because of its hardline approach to unofficial rescue missions. Rome claims these are colluding with people traffickers. Now, Italy's migrant backlash grew last year with the election of the populist government and its far-right interior minister, Matteo Salvini. New legislation passed this week threatens captains of rescue vessels with fines of up to €1 million if they enter Italian ports without permission. The government also wants other EU countries to take in most of the refugees and migrants landing in Italy. DW's Max Zander joined a Sea-Watch rescue mission off the Libyan coast and sent us this report.
Take off from an undisclosed location. The German NGO Sea-Watch is taking us on a reconnaissance flight over the Mediterranean. Kai, Maria, and pilot Jan have one main objective: saving lives.
We're 70 miles off the Libyan coast. This is the central Mediterranean route, northern Africa and Europe. The crew of this search plane is looking for migrants who attempted the dangerous crossing, often in small rubber boats, and putting their lives at great risk.
Finding them is like looking for a needle in a haystack, and conditions are anything but ideal. The Sea-Watch aircraft Moonbird mainly operates in the search and rescue zone off the coast of western Libya, an area that spans more than 350 kilometers of coastline. This is where migrant boats set off on their perilous journey to Italy and Malta. Footage from an earlier mission shows how that looks. Dozens of people on an overcrowded rubber dinghy. Passengers often spend days out at sea, exposed to the sun and with limited supplies.
People who have been on the water for days are usually dehydrated, desperate, and in a serious medical condition. Those really are emergencies that have to be evacuated as soon as possible.
After hours up in the air, we spot a suspicious object in the water.
That's a sunken rubber dinghy.
For now, we don't know what happened to the people on board. These cheap, inflatable boats are not made to last and sometimes sink after days out at sea. Even if Kai and his crew manage to spot a boat in distress, it doesn't mean the passengers will be brought to safety. Due to a crackdown on NGOs, there are very few rescue boats left on the water, and merchant vessels try to avoid the affected area altogether. Often the Libyan Coast Guard is the last resort. For Kai and his colleagues, this is a frustrating experience.
I want the people to reach a safe haven. I want these people to get to Europe. And I want them to cross the ocean safely and not be brought back illegally. But as long as ships are being seized, rescue capacities are being cut, and we're the only ones keeping an eye on the water, we have to deal with situations like this.
We are back on the ground. Where exactly, we cannot say. Kai and Maria are aware that their organization's activities are being closely monitored. Since EU governments such as Italy have started to crack down on rescue NGOs, Sea-Watch faces public criticism and accusations that they are aiding people smugglers. A claim that Maria vigorously rejects.
We would never communicate with people smugglers, in no capacity. They're simply criminals who've made a business with people who suffer and make money out of the circumstance that they're so desperate and see no other way than reaching out to them.
Kai says these claims are used to paint them as criminals and distract from the real issue.
Human lives have to be saved. For me, that's not up for debate. And there's too much discussion going on about it, about who should be saved.
Despite the mounting pressure, Kai and Maria say they will continue to go on missions for as long as they are allowed to, or until their work becomes no longer necessary.
I'm now joined by Charlie Yaxley from the UN Refugee Agency, the UNHCR. Welcome, Mr. Yaxley. Now, why is it that NGOs are having to rescue refugees and migrants at sea and not the Coast Guard?
Well, what we're seeing right now is a real lack of search and rescue capacity on the Mediterranean. There needs to be a significant increase of that. One of the major players doing this at the moment off the Libyan coast is the Libyan Coast Guard, but there's a huge issue there where they are then returned to Libya and taken to detention centres such as Tajura, where last month 50 people were killed after an airstrike hit them while they were trapped inside. So what can be done instead? Well, we need to see states lift the current legal and logistical restrictions on NGO boats. NGOs have played a crucial role on the Mediterranean saving lives, and they should be allowed to carry out their operations. But we also need to see EU state vessels, like we saw in previous years, return to the Mediterranean. We need the European states to bring back a program like that to prevent the crisis of deaths that we currently see on the Mediterranean.
But is there any sign that this is happening? Because your organization has warned that punishing private rescue ships could prevent lives from being saved in the Mediterranean. What will happen if these NGOs stop operating?
Well, there's a real concern here that, the NGOs will be increasingly deterred. We may end up in a situation where there are no NGO boats operating. And then that will place a greater burden on commercial ships. And with this new law that has passed, we fear that shipmasters of commercial ships may hesitate or even ignore distress calls out of fear of being stuck at sea with those rescued passengers for days on end. I mean, since April, the situation in Libya has deteriorated substantially. And we cannot turn a blind eye to the suffering that's taking place there. The number of arrivals attempting to reach Europe is down significantly compared to previous years, back to pre-crisis levels. So it's a question of developing a solution where there's cooperation amongst states, search and rescue capacity is substantially increased, and states agree a mechanism on how to share responsibility for hosting them afterwards.
So what does the UNHCR think needs to be the top priority in dealing with this migration across the Mediterranean?
Well, the sea journeys themselves are really only one aspect and really the final aspect of this route. Any attempt to address this situation has to have a holistic and comprehensive outlook. We need to look, first of all, at why people are fleeing in the first place from their home countries. There are currently more than 15 unresolved conflicts in East and West Africa that are prompting people to flee their homes. At the same time, in other countries, but also countries of asylum, they need support with strengthening their asylum systems and with strategic development assistance so that people feel they are able to live their lives or rebuild their lives in the case of refugees. Only then will we see a change where people no longer feel the desperation that they put their hands in the lives of these unscrupulous smugglers and traffickers who organize these routes.
Charlie Yaxley from the UNHCR, thank you very much for talking to DW.
Thank you.